Hello everyone, what is up? My name is Jugs and welcome to a video I didn't think I'd be making simply because I wasn't expecting any of the Call of Duty little franchise worker there, peoples, Treyarch and all them. I wasn't expecting them to actually listen to the community because it seems like the next Call of Duty game is going to be fully established, boots on the ground, and better yet, Sledgehammer is going to take another crack at zombies, which I'm pretty excited for. And basically, I got the idea to make this video from my buddy Kane, aka Kodiak. He also works on the Smidwinders like I do. Be sure to go check out the Smidwinders. It's our little public channel. There's a couple people on there like me, Fury, and Kane. So, before I get into my part of the video, I want to cover what Kane covered in his video, which I will probably not link in the description. So if you go search up Sergeant Kodiak on YouTube, you'll find it there. And let's get right into it. So, Kane mentioned the storyline, and he mentioned how it could be either completely new or canon with Treyarch. He talked about the World at War characters from Nocturne, Toten, and Verrückt, those little Marines, how they didn't talk, and then they would talk about kicking ass and everything. He talked about how Element 115 would have to incorporate if they made it canon with Treyarch. Then he talked about how, with 115, how veteran players would be a little bit bored of it just because, it's been here for a couple of the games now. It's getting a little bit boring, so for them, it can do, or they can do really anything they want with it. Sledgehammer can for the storyline, similar to Treyarch or opposite. So I mean, they don't have to have a reason. They could. There's natural zombies, which I really like the idea of, and I'm going to talk about when it comes to my turn. There's no super weapons, which I also talk about in my opinion. Normal World War II weapons, which I dig the idea of. That would be quite interesting to me. AA guns. AA guns are anti-air, for in case you don't know. I mean, I don't know. Next up, he talked about how the only references we really have for how Sledgehammer might do was Modern Warfare 3 Survival, which is basically a completely different mode compared to zombies. Then there's Exo Zombies, which didn't go over too well, and then there was the AW campaign, which Kane and I both really liked that campaign. It was done really well. And finally, a cluster of storylines could be confusing for players, talking about how Treyarch's versus Sledgehammer's, and he basically said the more interesting one will definitely stick. Now let's talk about what I like to say real quick. So, well, not real quick, for the rest of the video. Basically, I want to start off by saying I had this idea of if we weren't going to have Element 115, I was assuming that there might not be the quote-unquote magic stuff involved either. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I do plan on making a full-fledged, long video, not long, like not 30 minutes, but maybe 15, 20, just like a longer video going full depth of what I would love to see, just like in detail. But basically, I'm going to just go over it real quick. So I had the idea of replacing perks with more time appropriate things. So basically, like, if you instead of Jug, you could get thicker or more body armor, which would like slow you down possibly. If that's kind of a cool idea to anyone else, I think it'd be interesting. Moving along, there is Speed Cola. Basically, it's just fast mags. Just imagine like taping another clip onto another one. Stamina up goes hand in hand with Jug. I'd say it would somehow make you faster if you didn't have Jug, or it would completely cancel out like the slowdown part of Jug. And then Quick Revive is basically pre-filled syringes, and what I'm thinking is that reviving normally will be a quick animation of like pouring some liquid into a syringe, putting the top on the syringe, and then injecting it into someone, something quick like that. And then Quick Revive would just be already filled, cut it down a little bit. Moving on to the idea of story, I love the idea of it just happens. Kane talked about it. He didn't go really in depth with it, but just natural zombies. I think that would be so cool. No Element 115. I think I could live with that. Something quite new would be quite interesting, and especially something that I can like be at the birth of. I wasn't exactly at the birth of the Treyarch Zombie storyline, so I didn't quite get that experience of going along with it and catching up with everything and feeling like I was anticipating the next event. But this one, if it was just happening, they didn't have to explain why the zombies were there. It's just that they were. I think that would not only tie in a lot more with like character reactions and everything as to like why would they care how they're here. They just want to get rid of them as much as possible, right? Next up, I'm thinking iconic possibly relatable to some people, and then more defined and unique characters. Coming up with people that are a lot more interesting and a lot more spanned out. Of course, we had different races and different sort of reactions and stuff with the other characters, but to me, that was mostly just for dialogue, knickknacks, and stuff like that. I think it'd be interesting to have a lot more of like actual people-seeming characters. Next one is solid reasons for the characters to be at each map. Now I was thinking like talking about that AA gun and stuff like that. Make the maps like make a couple of them big and a couple of them small, like have a nice little healthy balance. But like the big ones be actual like battlefields where World War II battles might have taken place, and just have them like go around, and like there should be a reason for them to be there, because to the naked eye, a lot of the maps in COD Zombies always just kind of seemed like, some of them seemed kind of random, like why would they be here? So I think it'd be interesting if it was on the surface quite obvious or kind of obvious, and then in depth it would make even more sense, you know, more story connected to it. Realistic reactions from the characters, that would be great. I think it ties in with the whole more relatable thing. It talks about how like if this person is sort of a nervous newbie sort of character, I'll talk more about who the characters I kind of like the idea of next, but if the character's sort of nervous and but still kind of determined, there's not just going to be like, yeah, let's go do this. They're going to be like, oh god, what is going on? Alright, well, here's the goal. At least we can try it, I guess. So and then the last point I want to talk about with story is possibly post World War II and during. So maybe like the first 2 maps that come out, since there's 4 DLC with every Call of Duty game. So like the first 2 DLC, one will be like a bigger one, a bigger war zone field, you know, all that tying in with obvious World War II feeling. But like make it maybe one of the middle battles or one of the battles closer to the end. And the next one be a smaller one, maybe in a building or something like that, similar to kind of how Kino was, and just kind of yeah, just smaller and tying in towards the end of the story. Maybe like something about where Hitler died or something like that. I don't know. I'm not going to go too in depth with it now. I want to talk about the weapons next. Keeping World War II weapons would be awesome. World at War had World War I stuff, if I believe correctly. But like having the Kar 98K, having like the straight, you know, trench gun, that'd be awesome. All that stuff, it would be great. Then I want to talk about how the mountable, or the super weapons, possible super weapons. Now I know I told you that Kane said he doesn't want super weapons. He would think it'd be much more interesting. I like the idea of not the traditional super weapons, but more unique, more different ones. Basically, I want to think about having like a grenade sack launcher, which sounds weird, but imagine sort of like a bigger tube for an RPG with a sack full of grenades, and like when it lands, it'll give like 2-3 seconds, and then it'll just explode, a giant explosion, something. And then like a Tesla rifle, which is kind of stretching the limit, but like just having a sort of gun where it's got this sort of metal bar there that conducts electricity. Don't give it a lot of range, just give it a little bit of like a, hey, all these things that are around you, just a quick zap and it'll like stun them, or maybe 2 or 3 zaps will kill all of them. You know, nothing really like overpowered or at least game changing altogether. More of stuff just like, if you get it and you don't really have anything better, or you kind of need a weapon, then it's there, you know. I also want to talk about mountable turrets and the AA guns, or even like disabled tanks or planes. So basically, like I said, the war zone thing is kind of really interesting to me. Having the idea of like sort of like Origins in a way, but bigger, more wide, I guess. Making it so, imagine having free like turrets and AA guns and stuff like that you can go and climb up on and get into. You can still be attacked, or even have like a small animation of the zombies dragging you out would be interesting too. I don't know, that would go over differently with other people, but just imagine having to open a couple different doors, like not just having them right away, or not having them, you know, all that OP. I think that'd be awesome. What I meant by disabled tanks or planes, imagine like seeing a tank half sunk into the ground, unable to get out, and the people that were inside just had to abandon it. Or just like a tank that got one of its treads or both of its treads like blown off, and now it's just kind of stuck there. Being able to climb up and using the top turret would be interesting, or if you want to stretch it, especially, you could use the main cannon, but like that would be some, I'd say like you'd have to be easier to kill that way, just something like that. Uh, and planes, I'm imagining like a crash plane having one little turret left available or something like that, you know, on the front or back. And especially, I think the planes or the tanks could definitely tie into like the smaller area, the smaller maps too. Just imagine like a plane crash. I say imagine a lot, but it's kind of what we got to go with. So like a plane crashed into the wall that you can access after opening a few doors that might like look down into the starting room, I think would be interesting. Like you can't access it from the starting room, but you could definitely be near it. And just like looking down and shooting at them, or having a tank on one of the ground floor rooms and just like partially busted into the wall, or maybe not even tanks, maybe not. And then there's still turrets to think about too, just like turrets set up, and AA guns would obviously be up on hills and everything too. And moving on to the last points I want to cover for this video is characters. So I came up with 4 sort of just off the top of my head characters that I think would make interesting for for a story, and make interesting for dialogue and little stuff like that. So the first one I had was a hard-headed sergeant or captain. Just like, you know, someone up there stereotypically with very little logic. So if any of you ever watched Red vs. Blue, kind of imagine Sarge in a way. Or like I think the Major Pain Drill Sergeant might be a good example. You know, just those loud-mouthed, like really tough, really go-get-'em sort of guys. And then there's the nervous but determined rookie who I was referencing earlier. Some guy that was, maybe by the first map, he's just sort of fresh out of boot camp, or he's a couple weeks out of boot camp, and he's seeing this for the first time, and he's not as hardened as a lot of the other soldiers, so he's not just like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Or he's not like, he's probably going to be like, oh, what am I going to do? And then he's going to be like, well, we have a task. I can try my best to go get it and stuff like that. But like, he's not going to be like, yeah, let's do this. Next, I wanted to talk about a level-headed field medic or nurse. I think bringing in some diversity of having female characters and male characters and stuff like that, just like with Transit and Town and, you know, the Green Run crew, they were awesome. I loved them. Having Die-Rise and all them, yeah, all those people, you get it. I think just having that little bit of diversity with like the characters' personalities and the characters' somewhat backstories, and even having just the sexual diversity was definitely made it much more enjoyable, just because of how characters could dialogue change and stuff like that. So having a level-headed field medic or nurse would make sense, because they kind of have to work under stressful situations all the time. And finally, a charismatic or goofy pilot. Now, I sort of stole this idea from the character in the Battlefield 1 campaign, the pilot dude, because he's just kind of like, he's almost in a way satire against like how Air Force people are like expected to be. They're all like, you know, they're easygoing, but they're still serious when it comes down to it. And to me, I think it'd be awesome just to see a World War II loudmouth, not loudmouth, and I use that too much. Just, you know, a goof. Just an overall goof. So, if you guys would watch it, actually, regardless if you guys would watch it, I'll probably make a longer video about me talking about this and what I would do. And now looking at the fact that we're about 13.5 minutes in, I think it would be much believable that I might actually make a half-hour one, knowing me. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Keep an eye out, because I'm hoping to make that like half-hour long video. It's going to take a little while. But I hope you're also been enjoying the Last of Us walkthrough that's been going up. My name is Tom. You can call me Jugs. You know, whichever one you feel so inclined to do. Be sure to check out the Smidwinders, because that's our little community channel, and that's where you'll see a bunch of other stuff. Check out Sergeant Kodiak, who posted his version of this video, and it was about 9 minutes long, and he basically talked about what I mentioned on the first part of this video. And that's it, everyone. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't follow me on Twitter, because I'm not using my Twitter. You can